the polls.
Hello.
Hello, I can hear you. Good morning.
Good morning. We're still testing. We're trying to get the all connected. So I'll be right back.
Okay.
Just a few minutes.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Not a bother at all. Good morning.
Yeah, also I'm missing now.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, I can hear you.
You can hear me right now?
Yes, very well. But it says your
bandwidth
bandwidth is a bit low. Your network bandwidth.
Yes, it is. But you can hear me clearly, right?
Yes, I can. Yes, very clear.
Good morning, Vivian. This is Dr. Adeshino.
Yes, I remember you from Tanzania. That was where we met initially.
Oh, yes, Arusha. Oh,
yes,
Arusha. Indeed.
Yes.
Nice. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for joining us this morning. We have our young people with type 1 diabetes here. Well over 20 of them. Age range from 11 to 23. So we'll be glad if you can share your own experience with them.
Okay.
And there will be some useful lessons they will learn from your own experience.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
You have the floor now.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
So please go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. All protocols observed.
I can see you on the project.
Yes, all protocols observed. Dr. Adeshino, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to talk to young people living with T1D. So I'll start off by giving a self-introduction. So my name is Nkiru Vivian Okoro. I'm 40 years old and I was diagnosed with T1D on the 22nd of February, 1988. I was 7 years old then in primary 3. And the whole diagnosis changed my whole life. For me, I said it changed it to a better life. I am married with 2 amazing children, a 7-year-old girl and a 5-year-old boy. And currently, I am doing an MSc in diabetes care and management. And my previous qualifications include a BSc in clinical microbiology, a second degree in biomedicine in University of Glasgow, and an MRes also in biomedical sciences in the same University of Glasgow. And I have a diploma from the Wageningen University in nutrition and dietetics. So as you can all see, diabetes has in no way stopped me from achieving my goals. And I'm not just stopping here, I'm still moving forward to know more about diabetes. So today I'm going to tell all of you a story about my journey with diabetes, the highs and lows of living with T1D. That's the nickname I prefer to call type 1 diabetes. So you will hear me most often using the term T1D. So it all started 3 weeks after I came back home from the East, because we're living in the North then, in Jos to be precise. We traveled for the Christmas holiday in December 1987. And when we got back home to Jos, 3 weeks before my diagnosis, I started having very, very funny feeling. I was always thirsty. I used to drink a lot of water. I used to pee a lot. I always had constant headaches. And I would just walk a few minutes and I'm so tired. And I was wondering, why all this? I don't understand what's happening. But some years before all of this started, I was quite a sickly child. And I didn't understand then that it was the whole process of my immune system fighting against my body organs. So it didn't even occur to us. I was just termed the very sickly child, and constantly in the hospital, being treated for malaria, typhoid, and all of that. So on that fateful, the night before the diagnosis, I was really sick and throwing up. So my dad said, Nkiru, you're not going to school tomorrow. We have to take you to the hospital. And we need to know what is really wrong with you. Because then we had done the self-medication of malaria treatment at home. And I still wasn't feeling any better. And then something funny happened that night. I peed on myself. That was the first time it has ever happened. And I felt so embarrassed. And my mom was like, what is all this? Didn't you know when you wanted to pee? And I told my mom, I said, Mom, I just peed not up to 10 minutes ago. So I don't know what happened. Why am I peeing like this? I go to the room. I have so many bottles of water around me. I just kept drinking. I was dehydrated. So my mom said, okay, your dad will take you to the hospital first thing tomorrow morning. So my dad took me to the hospital. They took blood from me and said they needed to run some tests. As usual, it's the same old typhoid, malaria tests that were run. And they all came out positive. They even said I had very high typhoid. And I was so weak and dehydrated. And the doctor was like, okay, it's because you've been vomiting and you've not really eaten. So that's why we have to put some glucose drip for you. So they put the first one. I wasn't getting any better. I kept going to the toilet to pee like every 5 minutes. And they were saying, they don't understand though what is happening. But I said, I'm getting weaker and weaker. So the whole thing just disorganized me. And I really felt like, I don't understand what's happening. They said, okay, they're going to continue with a second drip for me. And my dad was like, my daughter is not getting any better. What's happening? And they were like, yeah, the typhoid is very, very high. She has malaria 4+ and all of that. So they kept on giving me more drips, more drips, more drips until the 6th one. After the 6th one, I passed out, as in I lost consciousness. And my dad was like, please, he's changing the hospital, that he needed to take me to Jos University Teaching Hospital. So the next part of this story is what I was told, because I had lost consciousness. I wasn't conscious anymore after taking the 6th drip. So according to my parents, they put me in an ambulance and rushed me straight to Jos University Teaching Hospital. My dad had called one of his consultant friends who was already waiting for us. Unfortunately, the hospital was on strike then. So there were no doctors available to even attend to me. So when my dad's friend came, as soon as he felt my pulse, he now told my dad, "We are sorry, sir. Your daughter is dead." That was what they told my dad. My dad was like, "No, it cannot be. How can she be dead?" He said, "There's no pulse." So he just said, "You have to sign papers for us so that we can move her into the mortuary." And my twin sister and brother, because my dad's driver had to bring them to the hospital, my twin sister kept telling my dad, "Daddy, Nkiru is not dead. God told me that she's still alive. Don't let them put her in that place where they put dead people." But my dad was still trying to explain to her and say, Uju, you know, sometimes these things happen. Your sister is gone. You just have to accept it. She was like, "No." Without listening to my sister, they wheeled me into the mortuary. And my sister kept hitting my dad's friend and was saying, "Uncle, please bring my sister out of there. She's not dead. My sister is not dead. Bring her out. She's alive." And my dad's friend was like, "Okay, let me just oblige this little girl." So as soon as he got into the mortuary waiting area, he now noticed my chest go up and go down. And then he now decided to check my pulse again. And he now realized I had a faint pulse. So he now told them to wheel me out of the mortuary again. And that was when my sister was like, "Daddy, please take Nkiru to Dr. Wright's hospital." Dr. Wright was my mom's gynecologist. And my mom was like, "But Dr. Wright only treats women." My sister, my twin, said, "Mommy, please take her there. That is where God said you should take her to." And immediately I was put back in the ambulance and taken straight to Dr. Wright's hospital. And as soon as I got in there, he said, when my mom told me that when he came into the emergency ward, that as soon as he smelt my breath, that he just knew what the problem was. So he told my parents that they should not worry, that he will help me, that I'm not dead, that I'm just in a coma. So that was how they put the salt drip, which is known as normal saline, and gave me insulin injections straight in my abdomen, because the abdomen is usually the fastest absorption site for insulin injections. So after that, I was in coma for the next 5 days. I didn't know what was happening. And on the 5th day in the evening, I finally woke up. And when I woke up, I was like, where am I? Because the last place I remembered was a private hospital, which my parents took me to initially 5 days ago. So I couldn't remember anything. And I was like, where am I? So my mom said, you're in Dr. Wright's hospital. So the nurses called Dr. Wright, and then Dr. Wright had to tell my family members to excuse him, that he would like to have a word with me. So I kept asking, I said, Dr. Wright, what's the problem? How did I get here? What happened to me? He was like, calm down, my child. I have to tell you something, and it's not very good news. I now told him, just tell me, don't keep me waiting. He now told me, you have diabetes. I was not like, it cannot be. Diabetes is for old people. And he was like, he started laughing. And I said, Dr. Wright, but it's not funny. You say I have diabetes. My grandparents from my mother's side both have diabetes. My grandparents from my father's side both have diabetes. How can I have old people's sickness? I'm just 7. He now said, okay, let me explain to you. There are 2 types of diabetes. And the type of diabetes you have is known as type 1 diabetes. The ones your grandparents have is type 2. So I was like, I don't understand. Please explain to me. He now told me that now my whole meal plan has to change. I can't have rice. I can't have yam. I can't have cakes. I can't have biscuits. I can't have ice cream. I can't have Coke, Sprite, whatever drink, juice. That my whole diet has changed, and I would have to use insulin by injecting myself, that my body doesn't produce insulin anymore. I was like, how? But nobody in my family, as young as I am, has ever suffered from diabetes. He now started explaining to me that it was a genetic thing, since my grandparents from both sides were all living with type 2 diabetes and all of that. So I was very sad. I was in the hospital for the next 1 month. And finally, when I got home, it wasn't any better. I was really, really, really depressed, because the thought of me waking up every day, I have to prick myself to check my blood sugar before I eat. I have to take injections, and then the needles were so long, not the little needles, the tiny needles we use now. They were so long, and I was taught to make sure the whole length of the needle went into my skin. So most times I don't even want to eat because I was afraid to inject myself. So for 3 years, I was in depression. I was seeing a psychologist. I wanted to die. I told God to take my life, that why am I living? My family will be eating every other thing I can't eat. I was totally distraught. And one night when I was praying, because then I never used to like to even come out. If my family is going to church, I wouldn't go to church with them, because I said God doesn't like me. That why would he give me this disease? That if he liked me, he wouldn't have let me go through all of this pain. So I told my parents I wasn't going back to school, that I was going to stay in the house. I wasn't going to church. I wasn't going anywhere that God should do. I just wanted to die. I was just tired of the whole thing. So one night, as I was praying, a voice, I always say, I think God spoke to me. A voice just told me, Nkiru, you are made for signs and for wonders. This disease will not hold you back from doing anything that you want to do. And that was the break point for me. That morning, I woke up, my siblings were getting ready for school. And I told my mom, Mommy, I want to go to school. She was like, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yes." So then I had to call my dad's friend, who was a consultant endocrinologist in Jute. And he was like, "Okay, but we need to be careful." And my first day of school, after my diagnosis, was horrible. I was rushed back to the hospital, unconscious again. I had a hypoglycemic episode because at this time, I was not having any form of carbohydrates. My 3 basic meals were unripe plantain, beans, and loads of vegetables. So I had this, my mom had the plan where every Monday was a plantain day and every Tuesday was a beans day. Then Wednesdays, I had loads and loads of vegetables. So I wasn't having any form of appropriate carbohydrates to match my insulin. So I was constantly going into a hypoglycemic episode. So that day, the school had to call my parents. They had to rush me to Jute again, unconscious. And by the time my parents got there, I was already being given some dextrose drip to resuscitate me. So my mom was like, "How are we going to go past this? How will you go to school? Is this how you're going to go to school every day?" I was now like, "Mommy, don't worry, I'll be fine." So on my own then, anytime I go to my dad's office, because most times I was always with my dad because I was most times too sickly to even go to school. So when my dad is going to work, he takes me along with him. So on one day, I told my dad's secretary that I wanted to go on the internet and know what diabetes, that's T1D, what T1D was really about, that I don't seem to understand what this whole disease is about. And I need to move past the disease. I didn't want the disease to hold me back. So she now told me I should sit on her chair. So she now typed the word, "What is diabetes?" And I started reading. That was the beginning, how I got to understand what T1D was. And also the second breakthrough for my overcoming the disease. It's been a struggle, I must say. It hasn't been easy all these years. My best years have been the past 20 years when I have garnered so much knowledge that has made it easier for me to live with the disease. So now, the next phase is the diet phase. I struggled a lot with that. Like I told you initially, my diet then for the first 3 years after diagnosis was basically unripe plantain, beans, and then vegetables. So my mom prepares all these meals in different forms for me. And when I now finally got to understand at age 10 that I could eat everything, it was a huge thing for me, because there was one incident that happened before the breakthrough with the diets happened. One night, my mom prepared very sumptuous, delicious jollof rice. And on the dining table, everybody was eating jollof rice, but I was eating plantain porridge, unripe plantain porridge with ugu. As usual, I just kept quiet. I ate my food and just went to my room and sat down there. I had a plan cooking up upstairs. So my mom came in and was asking, "Am I okay?" I said, "Mom, I'm very, very fine. I just want to rest. I'm a bit tired." She said, "Have you checked your blood sugar?" I said, "Yes, my blood sugar is fine. Let me just sleep a little." So as soon as everyone went to bed, I did the most funny thing. I creeped out of my room and went to the kitchen to have a taste of this sumptuous jollof rice that I haven't eaten in 3 years. And my sense didn't tell me that my mom, her room is opposite mine, would hear when the door opens. I was just focused on going to eat that rice and not letting anybody know that I had rice. So unknown to me, as I was spooning into my mouth, I wasn't even chewing the rice anymore. I was virtually swallowing the rice because I just needed to savor that moment of, oh my God, for 3 years, I've not eaten rice. Hey, let me just eat this rice and get it over and done with. The next thing I heard, my mom said, Nkiruka, what are you doing? Oh my goodness, my mouth was filled with rice. I couldn't even talk. And I had to quickly swallow. And I said, Mommy, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to eat this rice. Mommy, it's been 3 years. I haven't eaten rice. It's not fair. Then my mom just came. She held me. She hugged me. She said, my child, it's okay. It's okay. Don't cry. So we both just sat down on the kitchen floor and we started crying. And then 2 days after that, my dad's friend came from the US, a professor in endocrinology. So he came to our house. And before then, my dad has been communicating with him. And he was the one that used to help us order insulin, the human insulin, the Eli Lilly, the Humulin. So that was what I started using because I wasn't reacting well with the bovine insulin that was available then. So when he came to the house, he said he wanted to have a chat with me. So the first thing he told me, because my mom also told him about the rice incident, he started laughing. He said, he called my father by his name. He said, Damian, why have you been suffering this little girl? Nkiru, you can eat everything. All right, plantain, junk food, beans, all junk. You can eat everything you want to eat. Oh my goodness, you need to see the joy in my heart. I was very happy. I said, Mommy, go and cook white rice for me, steaming rice, fried chicken, do everything. So my mom obliged me. We were all excited. So he now said, but there's one thing you have to know. You have to match your food portion with your insulin. He said, are you ready to go through this whole process of tutoring? I said, sir, I will do anything as long as I can eat rice. Rice is even my best meal. I said, as long as I can eat rice, I will do everything. I don't care, just as long as I can eat rice. So we now started 2 days after at his clinic. And he went through explaining to me. And fortunately for me, he brought these very tiny needles for me for my insulin injections. So it even made the injecting process a lot easier for me. And I wasn't daunted in any way by the big needles I used to use before, because as soon as he gave me those needles, I threw away the other ones. So he explained to me, gave me a measuring cup, and told me to keep a chart of my glucose readings. So he said, do you know what levels your blood sugar has to be before breakfast? I said, well, I was told 3.5 to 7. He now said, okay, the figures have changed a bit. It's now 4 to 7 for younger children with diabetes. I said, okay. He said, okay, do you know what it should be 2 hours after your meal? I said, I'm not sure. I don't know. So he now told me 2 hours after meal, make sure your blood sugar is between 5 to 9. I said, okay, thank you, sir. So my parents got me a very big diary. I had where I recorded the type of food that I eat, because he said he wanted me to understand the effect of different meals that I eat, how it affects my blood sugar, and also to let me know when I can be most physically active to expend all the glucose in form of energy instead of storing it. So I eat lower carbohydrate meals at night. In the afternoon, at my most active time, I have the medium carbohydrate foods. So I was like, okay, I started the whole process. I got better understanding by the day. Even when I wrote my JSSCE, I didn't have so much issues. I can just remember like 2 hypo episodes after my papers, of which, as usual, during the whole process of my JSSCE, there was an ambulance outside with my father, just waiting in case I collapsed, because it happened like 3 times during the exam period. And I was even shocked how I aced my whole JSSCE. I now went on to the SS class. I got a better understanding. I was having less hypos now because I was able to match my insulin, but I was too scared to engage in any form of exercise because I was given the impression, or I wasn't told that I would need to check my blood sugar levels before I engage in any form of sports to avoid hypo. So the first 2 times I did a sprint race during the inter-house sports and I collapsed, my parents were like, no more sports for you. Just sit down and be a spectator. And I said, okay, no problem. So I thought I was getting a hang of everything until my SSCE, where I was virtually resuscitated every single day after my papers. Because I had to read throughout the night before the papers, I was so focused on passing my exams that I forgot to like take care of myself better. I was eating, but I wasn't eating enough. And it never occurred to me, or rather I didn't know that in the course of studying, my brain is using up so much glucose. And after that, I am meant to check my blood sugar to know what level it's at so that I can replenish the used up glucose by my brain. It never occurred to me. So once I'm just done studying, I just go to bed. Most mornings before the exams, my mom has to resuscitate me from a hypo episode. The good thing then is that my dad's friend brought a glucagon pen for us. So once my parents check, they immediately inject me to bring up my glucose level before I now have a carbohydrate meal. So throughout my whole SSCE, I was a total mess. It was really a struggle. I didn't even know I would pass. And when the results came out, I just told my dad, I said, Daddy, I'm sorry. I know that I have failed you. He said, no, you have not failed me. I said, why? Because I don't think I'll pass this exam. He now said, my dear, you had only 1 C, you had A's and B's. I was like, God, you really have a purpose for me. And with all of this that has happened, it made me stronger. I now said, I can actually go beyond T1D. T1D cannot hold me down. It cannot hold me down. I am bigger than this disease. So it now pushed me more to read. So when I went to the university, my parents, I went to a private university and my parents got me a private accommodation with some other of our family friends who stayed with me because they were too skeptical about letting me go because of the diabetes thing. And I told my dad, don't worry, Daddy, I can do it. And when they dropped me off at school, they had to tell all my friends, she is living with T1D. This is what you need to know. When she doesn't wake up, she's a very light sleeper. If she doesn't wake up when you guys shake her, just know that she has gone into a hypo episode. And this pen you can use it to resuscitate her. If you're too scared to give her an injection, then you call the school hospital to come get her up. So everybody living around me knew that I had diabetes. I was not ashamed of diabetes. I was proud to tell people that I was living with T1D. And this pride made people respect me more. Even when my grandmom was like, stop telling people you have diabetes. Don't you know they'll start running away from you? I said, Grandma, anyone who doesn't want to be my friend should go. Type 1 should not be a limiting factor. I am more than this disease. So after that, moving on to the next phase of my life, that's after my first degree, I now said, okay, I really need to understand how diabetes develops. And then I went on to get an admission at the University of Glasgow, where I studied biomedicine. And I got to learn so much about the disease. Most of what we think is not what it is. And it made me want to go into research about diabetes. So that's what pushed me into the research area with my main focus on diabetes. And it really got me quite intrigued and hungry for more knowledge. So right now, my young children, I just want to let you know that diabetes cannot limit you. You can be whatever you want to be. You can live to the highest, but you should always take into consideration that you must take care of yourselves. And one thing that helped me throughout this whole struggle with diabetes was me telling myself the truth, not living in denial. I told myself, Nkiru, you have diabetes. If you want to live long and be a voice to other people living with diabetes, you have to make an extra effort, take an extra step. And the extra step I took was, number one, I had to have a routine. So in your diabetes care, it's not about your parents, your doctors, or your healthcare professionals that are going to take care of you. You have to make up your mind to take care of yourself and have a positive attitude towards yourself. So what I did, I told myself, I heard about all the horrible diabetic complications, of which unfortunately I developed 2 due to the earlier diagnosis when I was poorly managed. But I said I wouldn't let this progress more than it is now. I told myself, Nkiru, your diet, you must be very careful. So currently I'm on a low carb diet. I eat everything and I match my insulin to my carbohydrate intake. I'm currently on what we call the multiple dose insulin. So I use 2 different types of insulin, and this gives me more freedom to eat whatever I want. So if I'm going to have a piece of cake, I'm going to calculate how much carbohydrate in that cake and then match up with the appropriate dose of insulin without going into a hypoglycemia. So that was the number 1 thing. Then number 2, I was always prepared. If I'm going to school, going anywhere, even till now, my kids, they still laugh at me. I always carry a big bag, and that big bag contains every single thing that I need. Don't let anybody laugh at you. In school, my bag was big because in that bag, I had my glucose tablets, I had my insulin, I had my test glucose meter with the test strips. I had extra bottles of insulin. I had my own packed lunch. So I never used to eat out, even till date. I barely eat out. I love to do my own cooking. So you need to prepare yourself to be able to live beyond T1D. And then you also need to take your medications as prescribed. And always remember your insulin injections must be taken 15 minutes before your meal. And you should always check your blood sugar before your meals. It's very important. Well, initially it was quite annoying for me to have to prick myself, but thank God for technology now. I actually use a Libra flash glucose monitoring system, which I wear on my arm. I'll show you shortly. It's I don't have to prick myself anymore. So as you can see, this is how I check my blood sugars now with my reader. So I have this reader. So it gives me an overall picture of what my blood sugar readings are throughout the day. And this helps me also adjust my insulin doses. And it also tells me with an alarm when I'm going into hypo. And if my blood sugars are overboard, that's very high, it also tells me. So I would like you to have a very strict routine and don't let anyone bully you. Do not let anyone bully you about living with diabetes. My mantra is, if you understand diabetes, diabetes will understand you. So I need you all to get a very good understanding of this disease. It's no longer a death sentence. I told you my story. I needed you to hear where I was coming from. Let it be a source of encouragement for all of you, because the disease has no cure for now. So we have to live with it. And living with it means we have to go by the rules of living well with diabetes. And my 3 cardinal rules: you have your exercise, your diet, and your medication. Very, very important. I don't joke with those rules. So you can live well with diabetes. You can be who you want to be. You can live far above 90 years with diabetes. The other day, I was telling my mom, I said, "Mommy, can you remember then when I wear clothes don't fit, I look awful and skinny and was too ashamed to go out. But look at me now. I'm happy with myself. I'm happy with the way I look." People told me that you will not be able to get pregnant with diabetes. People told me no one will marry you with diabetes. So I went through a whole lot of struggle. And I said, I don't care what anybody says. I am beyond T1D. I am married now. I have 2 amazing children. Honestly, 2 amazing children. My pregnancies were stress-free. I was well monitored. I took care of myself very well. So all you need is that extra time. Diabetes management is a lifetime job. You can't take a break. You must always be at the top of your game at all times. If you want to live and tell the stories of your struggles, it helps because it will encourage other people. And I know the number of people that I have encouraged by telling my life story and how I have struggled with diabetes initially, but now diabetes is not anything to me. Most times I don't even remember that I have diabetes. I just move on like every other normal person. but I still have at the back of my head my strict regimen. So always make sure if you're going to school, your bag has all your supplies, and always let your parents tell people around you that you are living with diabetes. And if possible, they can get you an ID card or a jewelry that has, I am living with T1D. It helps. I have been saved on 2 occasions. One, on my flight going to Amsterdam. I collapsed in the plane. But what made them able to resuscitate me was my necklace. The pendant was written, I am living with T1D. And when the doctors there saw it, they now said, okay, we know what to do. The first thing they did was to check my blood sugar, and I was hypo, because over time I lost my hypo sensation. So most times I really don't know when I go hypo. So I'm constantly checking. And thank God for my flash glucose monitor now, which helps me. Even if I don't feel it, my device here tells me whenever I'm hypo. So you can see that every disadvantage has some form of solution. I've lived with it for so long, and most times I'm not so hypo alert like I should be. And I have this to help me out. So I hope my story has encouraged you all, and I'll be glad to take any questions if there are any. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Vivian, for sharing with us this morning. I'm sure you can hear the applause, which we're going to repeat now, please.
Thank you, sir.
So I will let the young people come, make their comments and ask their questions.
Okay.
Thank you. So who's coming up first? I mean, please feel free to ask the question. If you have any question for her.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am Nofo Kumulade.
Sorry, I didn't get your name.
I am Omolade. You can call me Omolade.
Okay, okay.
I've been working with diabetes for the past 9 years. I know.
Okay.
I have a question to ask. Can you just explain your diabetes in regard to your relationship, your marital relation?
Okay, okay. That's a very good question. You know, because of your age frame, I didn't want to go into depth with that, but since you've asked, I would go ahead and explain. Like I told you before, it was a huge struggle for me. I had over 10 suitors, but once I told them that I was living with T1D, they all ran away. Nobody wanted to have anything to do with me. Even when my husband was coming to marry me, I told him, see, 10 people have come before you. So let me just inform you now. You can start going because I know you will not stay. My husband was like, what do you mean by that? I said, please pack your load and be going. No. And the funny thing was, I was in the UK then. And my brother got so pissed off and he was like, Nkiru, to hell with all these men. We'll just go and do IVF, I beg. If you even need support, I will help support financially to take care of the child. But my parents were not, they were worried for me. But I told my mom, Mommy, there are so many options. Don't disturb yourself. So when my husband started showing seriousness towards wanting to get married to me, I decided to give him a chance. And my husband, God bless him, he took that extra step to go and know everything there is to know about diabetes. Even throughout my pregnancies, you know, when you're pregnant with T1D, you're prone to having more hypos than you should. My husband took time to go and understand why that was happening. So he was constantly always checking my blood sugars, even when I couldn't. So having a relationship, your partner needs to understand you. There has to be a sync between the both of you. And family is everything. If you have an understanding partner, it makes life a whole lot easier for you. It's difficult to get one, but one can be gotten. There's education, there's resources everywhere explaining what diabetes is. Diabetes doesn't limit you from doing anything. You can have a very good relationship living with diabetes. Just let whoever you want to date know that you have diabetes. If the person will stay, the person will stay. So don't let it hold you down in any way. I never let it. And it has worked out for me well. Thank you.
Ask a question, make your comment, or share your own experience.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
I did Dolapo.
Okay.
Please, why do we need to wait like 30 minutes after taking the insulin before we can?
Okay. So the reason why you have to wait, you need to take your injections before your insulin, before your meal, is so that the insulin is already in your system and can start work once your food has begun digestion. Because in a normal person living without diabetes, once digestion starts, your pancreas is triggered to produce insulin, to start acting on the carbohydrates. So as a person living with T1D, you have lost that functionality. So you have to take yours out first, externally, because your body now has to absorb it before it gets to your bloodstream. So you need to have insulin in your system as the food is digesting. And it will make you not go into hypo. If you take it after your meal, by then, the whole digestion process has occurred, and you'll be left with too much insulin in your system.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We have someone, I think the person wants to ask a question. That's Lion or Sarah.
Okay.
She has a question. So
Okay, good day, ma'am.
Hello, hi.
Hello.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'm so happy to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And good morning, every person present there. Lovely, lovely, lovely program. I just want to add to, I'm living with diabetes, but it's type 2. Okay. And I started living at the age of 35. Now I'm 52, going to 53. So I've lived with it for 21 years. I had 4 children with 2 with gestational and 2 with living with diabetes. So I just want to encourage you all, as you're young, not to be like Nkiru told you. You have to own up. Don't allow peer pressure to discourage you from moving on. Because I have so many support groups, and I noticed that many of the young ones are not comfortable with themselves. You need to be comfortable with yourself, okay? And when you get into the university, you have to be in charge, because the doctors may not be as readily available to you. So you need to educate your friends, let them know what you're living with, like she rightly advised you, and accept your word. This is me. Diabetes will not define me. I will define diabetes. And that's what I did. So my friends, because I was always talking about it, My young friends were supporting me, but type 1 is different. Type 1 is more challenging. Like she told you, type 1 is more challenging. So please, I beg you, you have to be in control of your word. You need to know more about it. You need to accept your word that this is what I'm doing. I'm in control. Tell your friends about it. So if you feel, so that you don't allow your senses to die, your sensitivity to hypo, so that you can control your environment easily. Because Nkiru is a very lucky person. As you see her, she's a living testimony. I don't know why I came in late. I don't know whether she told you how she was in the mortuary. It was her twin sister that insisted that she was not dead. That's why we are seeing her today. So many people are not that lucky. So please, my darling, please live and accept your words and learn more how to be living with type 1. Type 1 and type 2 are not the same. So type 1 is more challenging. So, and tell your parents that you are not cursed. You can survive and you can live a normal life. So many footballers are living with type 1. Wrestlers are living with type 1. I have some friends who are here who are living with type 1, but they're living their normal life. They are bloggers, they are doctors. So you can be anything. Please, I beg you. All right? I just want to add that, and I'm so proud of all of you. God bless, doctor. And you see, the way we can make the change and change the mind of people around us is for us to be more advocates. Let us continue to advocate in our little way. People around us will become aware. They no longer stigmatize us. But if we hide it, if we keep hiding, people will not know that we are normal persons. People will not know that we can live a normal life. So please, let's join together and create more advocacy, and we can change the world around us. Good luck, everyone. Love you all. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, madam. We have a young lady here who wants to ask a question.
Okay.
Morning, ma'am. My name is Farida.
Okay. How are you?
And my question is that if you have hypo, can you still collect insulin without eating?
I didn't get your question.
If you have hypo, can you still collect insulin without eating?
No, you don't take insulin when you're hypo. So once your hypo has been taken care of, you can now take insulin before your next meal. Because if you take while you're hypo, you will go into more hypo. And it also depends on what you have taken, because sometimes when you treat a hypo, it really goes very high. And if you're using the multiple dose insulin, you're able to do a correction that will not make you go into more hypo. So I don't know the type of insulin you're using, but if you're using the multiple dose insulin, it's easier to manage when you go overboard after treating a hypo. But ideally, you should take your injection in your next meal.
Thank you very much, ma.
Thank you.
Good morning, ma.
Good morning.
My name is Ololade. Sorry, they're always saying like one is even though you don't eat, you still have to take your insulin. So if I don't eat and I take my insulin, I'm going to go into hypo. So how is that possible that you don't eat and you still have to like still take insulin?
Okay, I would make a tiny bit of a correction there. Like I said, there are different types of insulin that you can use. If you are on the multiple dose insulin, which is a combination of two different types of insulin, either you're using Lantus or Levemir, which are called the basal insulin, or you're using the Novorapid or Apidra, which are called bolus insulin. So if you're on the combination of those two, you can take your basal insulin without having a meal. You will not go into hypo. But if you're on a fixed dose insulin, you cannot do that. You must eat with your medication, because the multiple dose insulin mimics the way your body produces and uses insulin after a meal. So if you're using that MDI, you have the basal in your system, so it keeps your blood sugar levels at a safe range. So you can do that if you're using that combination of insulin, but if not, you must eat.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Finally, we have Chimeze Anyam. I think she has a question or a contribution.
Okay.
So Chimeze, kindly unmute yourself. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Good morning, all.
Morning, Chimeze.
Hey, sis, how are you?
I'm good, and you?
I'm very fine, thank you. It's good to hear from you and see you as well. Mine is a contribution.
Okay.
I think I came in a bit late, but I was able to meet when you were speaking. I don't know, I just want to contribute and inform the organizers of this event to engage the young people there. I think there are so many opportunities from IDF that they can benefit from, like young leaders in diabetes. I think that one is more of people, people of younger age and maybe type 1, I don't really know, but I will kindly suggest for them to check about young leaders in diabetes, engage these ones there so that they can as well meet other young people living with diabetes and also be encouraged. Then that will also help them to know more about diabetes, and if there is any opportunity from IDF, they can also benefit from that. That's what I want to suggest. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vivian, this morning.
Thank you, sir.
For speaking to our young people with type 1D. I'm very, very sure that they have learned quite a lot that will help them as they go forward in this type 1 diabetes journey. So I'll call one of them to come and thank you again on behalf of everyone here.
Please, Dr. Additional, can I say something real quickly, please?
Yes, please.
Yes, again, thank you very much, Mrs. Nkiru, for that wonderful presentation. I'm sure the kids, my name is Talabi, by the way, and part of the TDC organization. So on behalf of the entire organization of TDC, we want to say a very big thank you to you for sharing your story. I've learned one or two things myself, and I'm sure the kids out there have learned quite a bit as well. So thank you again one more time. And for the kids that are there, I just want to encourage all of you to, like Mrs. Nkiru has shared, this is not something that should keep you down. If anything, you should feel encouraged by her story. Her story has been very encouraging. She's been an overcomer. And I think I want you guys to take that lesson from her story. And also take whatever you learned from today and everything you're doing throughout this youth camp and share with your friends as well. Because I'm sure a lot of people have the opportunity to come here and listen to this wonderful story by Mrs. Nkiru. So please be an advocate. Go out as well with your friends, family members, people around you that are living with diabetes as well. Share your stories with them. Don't, it's not a stigma. It's not something you should be afraid about. But let people see that you're living with it, you're going by your lifestyle, and then educate others as well. One teach one, and we can all help each other as well. So that's just my little contribution. That let's not keep what we're learning to ourselves, but let's go out there and be a champion of an advocate of diabetes, and help spread the good news around as well. So again, thank you all very much, and have a wonderful rest of the day as well. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay. Somebody is coming to give the vote of thanks.
Okay, sir.
Introduce
I
yourself.
wanted to say something before the vote of thanks, sir. Hello. Yeah. Okay. Please, before you say, I want to please, doctor, I want to thank you. I want to first of all thank you for this amazing project. Like my Blue Circle member, Nkiru is a member of the Blue Circle too. I'm a member. Chimeze is a member. We need these our champions to belong to the young leaders before they leave the camp. Let them all put up their application, guide them, go through it. Let them go. We don't have young leaders from Nigeria. We have so many from other African countries. And like Chimeze put it, they are benefiting a lot. Their grants be given, their project that will help them to accept and live successfully. So please, before this camp, let it be part of what they achieve. And you, my great doctor, that is doing this project of type 1, because many of them in Lagos don't have a support group like this. Please let this become a down support group for type 1. Please, I beg you, sir. We will support you in any way we can from Lagos and from the Blue Circle team. Please, I want to encourage you, and I'm so proud of you and your team. Thank you all. God bless you.
Go ahead.
Good morning, ma.
Good morning.
My name is Tolu Alashe. So I'm here to thank you for sharing your experience with us. We are very proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you. And on the last note, I want you all to know that I am beyond T1D, and so are you. Don't let anyone or anything talk you down. Always keep a positive mindset. You are more than diabetes, okay?
Okay, if you look behind, you can see someone who's familiar. So I hope your heart is not beating fast as yours. And this one has come again. All right. He has given you the practical on exercise. You exercised yesterday, you did today. Now